I'd like to call the meeting to order. And roll call. Lusala here. Maleabo.
Here.
Paul Shant.
Here.
She's here on line. Panja.
Yes.
Jones.
Here.
Kolash.
Here online.
Shannon.
Here.
Ismail.
Here.
And Kuku's not here. Reading of the Native American Land Acknowledgement. We have Commissioner over there and read it for us.
We meet today in the community of Iowa City, which now occupies the homelands of the Native American nations to whom we owe our commitment and dedication. The area of Iowa City was within the homelands of the Iowa, Meskwaki, and Sauk, and because history is complex and time goes far beyond memory, we also acknowledge the ancient connections of many other indigenous people here. The history of broken treaties and forced removal that dispossessed indigenous peoples of their homeland was and is an act of colonization and genocide that we cannot erase. We implore the Iowa City community to commit to understanding and addressing these injustices as we work toward equity, restoration, and reparations.
Thank you. Item 3, approval of the March 28, 2023 meeting minutes. I'd like to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same
Aye.
sign.
I'm just had a question. I'm sorry. Before the vote, I
Yes.
don't know that I have a packet digitally that includes minutes. I apologize if I missed that coming through today.
It would have been on the Outlook invite for the meeting. The meeting packet was attached, and it would have had the draft minutes in it.
Yeah. The one that we had emailed.
The Outlook invite, the attachment I have of our packet does not include.
It doesn't have the minutes in it?
No.
Okay, after the presentation, I can pull them up, after the two presentations.
Okay. Sorry. Thank you so much.
Okay, we're gonna withdraw that vote, then we'll vote on it at after the presentation. Item 4, public comments. Any item not on the agenda? Hello, Mark.
Hello, Chairman Lusala. My name is Mark Priest. I am, by calling, a Christian pastor. Among God's revelations to me is the command, keep awake. I understand this to mean wake up, look around, listen, think. I awoke. I trust each of you human rights commissioners are awoke. The land acknowledgement read this evening is entitled Native American Land Acknowledgement. Native American is a label for anyone born on the northern or southern continents of the Western Hemisphere. Though my ancestors came here 125 years ago, I am native born, and therefore I am Native American. America is a label attached to the lands of the Western Hemisphere. The lands were labeled America by a map maker, Martin Waldesmuller, in 1507, and again in 1538, Matthias Ringman used America to name both continents in his book describing the map and a globe made by Waldesmuller. The word America comes from the Latinized version of the first name of the Italian explorer Amerigo Vespucci, who sailed for Spain and Portugal between 1497 and 1504 during the time of discovery. There were people here thousands of years before the 15th century explorers arrived here. To that end, knowing that you, human rights commissioners, are awake to what it has and is happening around you, knowing that you want to say what you mean, I am here tonight to ask you to call the land acknowledgement First Nations acknowledgement. This would then make this statement recognize peoples who lived here as more than merely occupying the land, but recognizing people whose spirit still fills these spaces. If you embrace this awakened view, I am pleased to help with any further edits of your then First Nation acknowledgement. Thank you. I will provide this electronically to the Commissioner's Executive Director.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? If there is no more public comment, we're going to move on to item 5, City Council Strategic Plan Presentation. And we have one of our fine councilor here today.
All right. Well, thank you all for having me here. It is my pleasure to talk to the Human Rights Commission about this topic. A little bit of background. I'm City Council member Sean Harmson, District B. And first, a little background. So the strategic plan actually is something that evolved through a long process that took up 2/3 of last year, involving multiple sessions, special long work sessions, where all of the council got together with city staff and some other members of the community and really sat through and went through our strategic plan, the various parts of it, updated our priorities all the way from the 10,000-foot view down to some of the more granular action items that we'd like to see. And we had a chance to sort of throw those things out there and sort of work together on sort of molding them and shaping them, along with, we had a consultant that helped us with that. And then, the consultant also got more input from city staff. And together worked through this document, worked through several drafts of the document until we had something that we felt really laid out a roadmap, a strategic plan for the city of Iowa City, based and starting off with our values and our mission as a city, and then building off from there. And trying to put that into so that as we move forward as a city, it's a document that we as a council can refer back to try and help us guide our way on some of our decision making, as well as for the other parts of the city, the commissions, the city staff. So we're all as much on the same page as we can be, so that we are pulling together enough that we actually get some things accomplished. So with that little preamble, I'm going to flip through this a little bit. So sort of the overview, there was sort of an environmental scan looking at the environment of the city, not the environment in terms of the ecosystem, rather in terms of the natural ecosystem, but more of the environment of I suppose I included some of that as well, but sort of more holistically. Looked at our strategic values, the impact areas and action steps. So as we go from that top-down view to smaller and smaller, more granular types of things. Also looking at what the resources are that we have as a city and how we can get these things done. One of the things that's important to know is the list of challenges and opportunities that the city faced as we were making this and continues to face today. Just kind of going down some of this list, a few things to highlight. As we know that there is an increasing preemption of local control by the state legislature, something we're seeing on a daily basis from Des Moines. And that is definitely a challenge for us as a community, especially because our values do not align with those values that we're hearing from those in power in Des Moines. State property tax reform, another part of the puzzle. We want to do a lot of things in our community. We want to have everything from roads that don't have potholes that send us to the auto repair shop every other week, all the way to nice parks, and to help all the way to programs that help businesses get started. All kinds of different things that we want to reach out to our community. We have to have some resources, some financial resources to do that. And of course, the city is largely dependent on those property taxes and what the state's doing to property taxes. They're still working through some of that stuff. And that's going to have an impact. Luckily, we we exist in a city where city staff has seen this coming for some time. I remember sitting down at a meeting 7 years ago, when my friend Mazahir was running for city council, sitting down at a meeting with Jeff Fruin at that time and discussing some of the challenges that were on the horizon as different rollbacks were set to take place. So because of that, this is going to have an impact on us, but we should have some gratitude towards the people who saw this coming and have tried to cushion the immediate blow as much as possible in this world that we live in today. There's a lot of expectations, yet diminishing trust in local government at several different levels. And some of that is just the culture we live in. Some of that is incumbent upon us and members of commissions and the city council and the staff to do the things that are right, do things that are helpful for our community and lift our community members up. We have to also understand that we are, even though we like to think of ourselves, and I think I'm very proud, I can say that I've lived in many places in Iowa, and Iowa City is the best place I've ever lived in the state, best place I've ever lived, period. But even with that, we do face those persistent racial and income inequality challenges, and we cannot turn a blind eye to that. And so we need to make sure that we are keeping that, celebrate our success, but don't get lazy, right? We want to have workforce attraction needs, and with staff recruitment and capacity challenges. We need good people working in our community and for our city staff. We can't have good services for our community if we don't have good people to provide those services. So we need to recruit and retain, something that employers of all kinds have really been facing new struggles with since the pandemic started in 2020, and we are not immune to that. Speaking of, we have the continued COVID impacts. The general inflation and economic pressures. Some of the supply chain issues that we had a year or so ago have reduced a little bit, but we're still seeing increased costs, everything from fuel to the time it takes to replace different vehicles for the city, whether it be with the street department, or the fire department, or any other departments, especially the more specialized the vehicle. Climate change and increasingly severe weather events. We just saw with our neighbors over in Coralville, the damage that was done here recently. And if you were to look at a map, there was actually a second tornado that went just along the eastern edge, just outside of Iowa City. Had those two tornadoes been a quarter mile closer together, we would have had two hit our community. Tornadoes aren't new, but what we know about climate change, it's like the weather on steroids. You don't know with a baseball player which home runs that person hit because of the steroids. You just know they hit more of them, right? That's why they take them in the first place. To me, that's what I think of when I think of these sort of weather events. We have to be resilient, and community resiliency is one of the things that we as a council decided was important, and different ways we can engage that to build stronger communities. So when those things happen, we have some infrastructure. We have things like that happened during the COVID, the NEST programs, things that our community stepped up to do, and to build on those kinds of things and make it possible for those things to exist and thrive. We do have population growth, which is a good thing. We need our community. If you're not growing, you're stagnating. And so we want our community to be growing. Regionally, we have population growth. We want some of that population growth and that business growth here in Iowa City to keep our community vibrant. That also ties into the property tax portion. If we're not growing, up to this point, we've been able to grow ahead of the cuts. We're in a position where we need to do all we can to make sure that that trend continues so that we do have the resources to do the things we want to do as a community. As with any sort of community that's been around for a long time, we have some facilities are getting a little bit old. We do want to maintain good facilities for our community and make sure that they're spread throughout the community. So whether it's parks or swimming pools or whatever the case may be, we need to make sure we're looking at those and planning for those things, those big purchases, planning them out 5-10 years in advance. And the other opportunity is we've seen some influx in federal funding opportunities through the Inflation Reduction Act. We're still allocating money from the ARPA funds, and so we've got some things like that, some resources that we've been able to tap into, and probably more resources still to come. And in fact, one of the things we identified is trying to tap into those resources is adding staff to help look for those grants and pursue those kinds of grant opportunities that are going to be so incredibly important. So I'm not going to go through, this is a very long series of slides. I'm not going to go through the entire series of slides. If there's any questions, I'll try and answer them. I'll just hit a few here at the beginning. You kind of get this idea of the strategy map. We have values that guide our strategy and desired outcomes. So partnerships and engagement, one of the values. We don't believe in I think I can speak for the council on this based on what we've done, that it's always just a top-down thing. Yes, leadership is important, but if we're not partnering with other groups, if we're not engaging all members of the community for our goals, we won't be successful. That's one of the reasons that it ties in well with the Human Rights Commission, because this commission is tasked with making sure that all parts of our community are included, are at the table. And it's one of the wonderful things about this community that we have such an active and vibrant HRC. Things like climate action, something that we all take very seriously. If only more people took it seriously. But we're doing what we can. We've made good strides here in Iowa City. We continue to push on that. And of course, then the one that really ties into the HRC is this racial equity, social justice, and human rights component. That is one of the values that guides all of the different areas that we talk about here in Iowa City, and also something that we look to the HRC to help provide us information, input, and guidance on some of these issues. So I'm just going to skip up to this one here, because this one directs, I think, speaks most directly to the HRC. And one of the things about having vision is you have to have some way to know some benchmarks. How do we know if we're accomplishing what we want to accomplish? How do we know if we're succeeding, or what do we need to do to succeed? And so there's 7 different areas here that in this slide. We'll know that we've achieved our vision when our community celebrates and welcomes cultural diversity. In some of these things, you'll see, yes, we already are doing part of this, but it needs to be universal, it needs to be more. When our community acknowledges and commemorates accurate historical cultural perspectives. It's kind of a sad irony that when we were putting this together last year, we couldn't anticipate how critical that piece was going to be of the puzzle, right? What we've seen in the last several months from Florida to Iowa, that idea that we want to value that accurate historical cultural perspective. We'll know that we've hit these goals when every resident understands how systemic inequities have disadvantaged some populations and have the skills to disrupt the bias. So not only do we acknowledge it, but we need to make sure that people have ways to make it better, to correct the things that are wrong. We'll know we've achieved our vision when the systemic barriers and policies, programs, and services are proactively addressed, looking for ways before there's a problem or before there's a new iteration of an old problem that we can address these kinds of things, which again, all members of the community, this is where those partnerships come up, because no one of us walks in the same shoes as anybody else. And so we really need to listen and we need to speak so that we can hear and exchange these ideas. We'll know we've achieved our vision when we build partnerships that facilitate equal access and opportunity. Again, partnerships are so key to the various things we do in this community. Just thinking of the way we've done partnerships even with things like our policing, right? Trying to get more mental health care as part of that picture, trying to divert things when somebody's having a crisis or an addiction sort of related thing. When possible, trying to get those into much more appropriate forms of care, but that's done in partnership. We have community partners that we work with that. We need community decision makers who reflect the diversity of the community. Just as this commission is such a beautiful example of that, we need that all across the board in our community. That we need to make sure that if a voice isn't being heard, we're making room at the table so those voices are heard. That people feel like they have access. They feel empowered to do the things that will make our community a better place. And of course, equity, inclusion, and belonging is clearly identifiable in all city operations and activities. Again, all of these areas are works in progress. I think we could point to ways where we can see that we've made some varying degrees of success, but we are a long ways from where we need to be, and so that's sort of why we want to do that. So the reason we put this all together is then when we approach all of the different sorts of issues, whether it be decisions about a facility remodel or accessibility, looking at grants for previously underestimated groups to help them start with their businesses. Zoning, as we look at form-based codes and ways to break down some of the inequities built into our community because of the way that zoning codes were done from 100, 150 years up until the recent past. So those are all kinds of ways that we look for our values to be expressed. And Roger said I could talk as long as I want. I told him you never tell that to a politician who's also a professor. And so I will pause because I don't want to go rambling on too long. I torture my students enough with those long lectures. But does any members of the commission have any questions for me at this time? Or anything else I can elaborate upon?
I just didn't feel like I can put you in a hold, give you 10 minutes, you know. So.
I have a question. I'm curious for your success metrics, how is this going to be measured? What KPIs will be used to, and like how is this going to be tracked? And is there any possibility that we can use some data to make like data-driven decisions?
Okay, in reverse order, yes. Depends on which thing, right? So when we talk about different metrics for different things. So if we're talking about the part about equity, inclusion, and belonging clearly identified in all city operations and activities, what does the makeup of our staff look like over time? Are we getting a more diverse staff? Are our departments reflecting what our community looks like? As with many other places, we lag behind, but there are, can we see these efforts making a difference over time? If we're talking about some of the systemic inequities, are we seeing more disadvantaged groups having businesses open, more entrepreneurship among those populations? So yes, absolutely, there's a variety of different metrics. It just depends on which part of this huge puzzle we're talking about. So,
Gotcha.
Great question.
Thank you.
I have a question. Do we have a ballpark number on how much the city's losing by the state property tax reform?
Not yet.
Okay.
That's been something that we've been talking about since, they've been talking about some of these things that we've heard rumblings out of Des Moines for a little while now. But in terms of what they've done this session and how it's all going to shake out, I think some of the stuff hasn't passed yet. Some of it's moving through. Some of the budget bills that are being proposed don't actually have numbers attached to them, and they're passing them through. So there is a whole lot of still big question marks out there. I think one of the things, like I referred earlier about feeling that some kudos, or at least wise planning, we do have an emergency sort of a contingency fund that the city, and I can't take credit for this because it started long before I got on council last year, put a little bit aside. And so when we face this year and all of a sudden we have to make decisions on our property tax rate, set our budget before we even know what the property tax is going to be, we can actually feel like we don't have to start now swinging the axe until we actually have all this stuff figured out. And hopefully we won't have to do that. But that's something we should be mindful. And not knowing how things are going to work out, but we're going to, but we at least have a little breathing room. We can take a little time. We have a pause. We have the ability to make as wise a decision as possible, not a rushed decision, which is, I think, to the betterment of this community. So.
I just want to take the time to also acknowledge the work that City Council and the staff did in the development of this strategic plan, because it's appreciated on the staff that it's highlighted that the city is working on. So I just want to make sure that we acknowledge that as well, too.
I think Commissioner Kelsey Paul Shantz has a question.
Go ahead, Kelsey.
Thanks, Roger. Thanks, Sylvia. And thank you, Sean, so much for taking time to be with us, both in person and those of us joining virtually tonight, too. I wondered if you might share a little bit in the presentation that was shared with us in the packet for tonight. I was really drawn by the action plans under all of the impact areas. And I wonder if you might have a couple of examples of how you see, and maybe I'm preempting the next part of your presentation, and if so, I'm sorry, but I was curious to kind of hear a little bit more about where the rubber meets the road here. So to achieve these things, and also with the priority areas that you've identified, those strategies and those specific actions that you're taking under those impact areas, where we might be able to see connections and also further support the City Council as the Human Rights Commission and also as individuals connected with our networks. So for example, one of the things that stood out to me was, I think it's under the impact area for the economy, the point number 3 about really focusing on success for systemically marginalized populations. That to me is one standout area where we might be able to collaborate and work together on further. But I'm curious to hear a little bit more about how you and the City Council are seeing those connections and the relevancy of human rights related approaches and priorities as you've identified.
Great, and thank you. Excellent questions. That actually gives me a nice segue into talking about some of the impact areas. So again, this idea of going from the vision, the why, the long-term and aspirational, the what, the long-term and guiding, and then the action steps, the how, the immediate, the actionable. Just real quickly, one of the other action impact areas was neighborhoods and housing. The vision, Iowa City is a collection of authentic, vibrant neighborhoods and districts. By way of internal and external streets and trails, each community member has safe and easy access to everyday facilities and services within a 15-minute walk or bike ride. So we want neighborhoods that are compact, they're socially diverse, have a variety of housing choices, and even some nearby commercial types of things. So that, again, it's we have walkable neighborhoods, walkable communities. We are looking towards more permanent, affordable housing choices. This is something that the City Council, all the members of the City Council have expressed multiple times as being a priority. And so we continue to look for opportunities as they come up. Affordable housing is a tough nut to crack, but we are all dedicated to making some progress in that area. The higher density development blends with existing buildings. So as we do things like infill, we don't just look at expanding outward, but also where in the city can we do some infill development, increasing some of that density for the pedestrian environment, and of course making sure public spaces are inviting and active in things like just even the general experience with things like public art and so on. So I think I'm going to try to move the. I don't know I've got things blocking the bottom of the screen. Okay, it's not on anybody else's. So one of the first things, kind of the strategy, the things we're going to be doing, is updating the city comp plan and zoning code. And so that's one of the things that's on the horizon. We just approved money in our budget to hire a consultant. Redoing the comp plan is something that, I forget, I think Jeff might have told me, but I think it's been over a decade ago. Maybe even longer. So the comp plan looks at the entire city and then is occasionally amended as needed for different things, as different parts of the city change, as new areas are annexed, that kind of thing. But doing that in a way that sort of really gets at some of these kinds of things. If you open up opportunities with the zoning code, we can hopefully encourage the kinds of outcomes that we want to see. Looking for partners in projects that act as models, cross-inviting and active, having these outdoor spaces, and addressing the unique needs of vulnerable populations, whether that be in terms of accessibility, all the way down to do we have curb cuts where we need them? The city has a program where we're constantly trying to increase the number of accessible curb cuts throughout the community, making all of those kinds of accessibility improvements. I promise, Kelsey, I'll get to the one that you were specifically asking about here in a moment. But mobility is also, I think, is an important part of this because community members of all socioeconomic statuses, and when we talk about that, it really crosses all kinds of different lines, right? We want easily, safely, and comfortable travel using multiple modes of transportation year-round. So. Commuters, some of us, many of us drive to where we want to go. And sometimes that's the only choice that fits with our various schedules and so on. But as much as possible, we'd like to see people move, be able to walk if they choose to walk. Iowa City does pretty good. I've lived in other communities that, for instance, one of my pet peeves in different places I've lived where they'd had ordinances that required sidewalks, but they kept waiving them for the developers, and then you had unwalkable neighborhoods. We want bike lanes. We're always adding more bike lanes and making our biking more safer. In terms of the bus route, our bus ridership took a big hit over the pandemic. It's slowly coming back. One of the things that we've talked about in council meetings, and hopefully will be something that we'll be picking up soon, is really looking seriously at reduced or zero fare bus. But we do not have that proposal in front of us yet, but that is something that's being talked about, and that's been a goal of many of us to work towards that. I know that's a goal that, again, started, I'm going to go back to when my friend Maza here was running for office, something that she talked about back then, and all of these things. In terms of like how we live our lives, it seems pretty slow, but in terms of this life of a city, things are moving along in a way that we need to keep pushing on that. So looking at those different kinds of the vision, looking for better access, convenience, design and maintain complete streets that are safe, that have bike lanes, all of those kinds of things, and grow and prioritize those bike and pedestrian improvements. Okay, here's the economy one. Yes, and so Iowa City, we think it's a wonderful community. If you're living here, I'm probably preaching to the choir, as it were. If you're like me, you moved here because this seemed like a really awesome place to be. A place to raise a family, a place to spend your time, a place to go out, a place to stay in if you so desire. We also want those businesses. There's a lot of businesses here that also make the community a fun and vibrant place to live. We want a vibrant arts and culture community, which we do have. And of course, we take advantage of the fact that we have the university right here. I mean, that's obviously a huge part of our community and provides any number of ripple effects and benefits from arts and culture to the availability of people with very specific expertise to first-rate medical care. So getting to these strategies, though. So we want to reinforce Iowa City as a premier community to locate and grow a business. It's one of those things, this is a place where I can actually be a heartfelt cheerleader for my community, because I really do think this is the best place in Iowa. And I've lived in a few places in Iowa, so I might be biased, but I've got a little bit of experience. We want to ensure that we have the appropriate infrastructures in place for future business growth and development. That's one of the things. The city can't go out and tell private businesses exactly where they need to locate and what they need to locate there, but we can set the stuff in place so that the opportunities are then available. And then the one that Kelsey was asking about, the cultivating a strong entrepreneurial and small business ecosystem with a focus on creating new pathways to success for systemically marginalized populations. And of course, this commission is one that actually does helps do some grants for these kinds of purposes. So obviously the work you do with that is, I just can't say enough, is so incredibly appreciated because that's not an easy task. We always have more wonderful ideas than we have the capacity to support, even if we try and increase that capacity year after year. But we can still make a dent. We can still make a difference. And that's what we want to do. So let's see. And then another impact area, safety and well-being. We want to support the mental and physical well-being of our community members. So public safety response. It could be the city, it could be a nonprofit partner, and that's one of the things, even in the last 4 or 5 years, coming up with nonprofit partners who can help us with some of these public safety responses. A really great case in point, I think a real success, is there were several camps around Iowa City that had people without homes that were camping in them. Once upon a time, and not that long ago, the reaction to that would be, well, we're going to put up a notice, and I forget if it was like 48 or 72 hours or 2 weeks or whatever the notice period was, and if those people hadn't moved away, we'd send in the cleanup crews, and they would just throw everybody's stuff away. We don't do that anymore. We take a very different approach. We actually have spent, rather than, the only thing you can say about that is it's relatively quick. This year, we did something very different. We worked with Shelter House. In fact, the city funds a position, an outreach position, trying to get people without homes into some sort of a stable housing situation. Certainly better than sleeping outdoors or sleeping in a tent. And so we were able to, everybody that wanted service was able to get that service. And this is one of those shifts that not a lot of people hear about, right? Because it's sort of kind of behind the scenes. But this is one of the things that's happening. And so this is why this wouldn't be possible without those kinds of partnerships and people who are called to a specific kind of outreach work being given the ability to do that work is something that I think we should be proud of as a city, that we will use our resources on that kind of a thing. The other things we want to think about a nuanced response. One of the things that came out of 2020 was a plan that was put together for a restructuring of the police department and the response and focusing on community policing. Many parts of that plan have been implemented, but that's something actually, and this is, so this was back in 2020, December of 2020. I ran for office in 2021, and somewhere along the line, I thought that this plan had been formally adopted by the council. I was incorrect. In fact, the city staff had been using it, and thank goodness, because they've done some good stuff, but we haven't actually, as a council, taken that back up. And so that's one of the things that we are going to be doing in upcoming work sessions, to sort of take a look at that sort of idea of what should policing look like in Iowa City. We'll bring our various perspectives to that discussion. But that's where we're going to kind of pick up from that restructuring plan from 2020. So some groundwork has been laid, and so that's actually one of the things that we're going to be looking at, and looking at those ways where we can enhance those partnerships for various kinds of services that we provide. I think, yep. So those are the impact areas. I could talk a little bit more about resources that we have. Actually, it's probably a good place I can wrap up with that next. But before I move on, does anybody have any question about the different impact areas that we've identified?
Yes, my name is Bijou, and I just want to suggest about the bus ride. You say maybe no fare, probably, but maybe increasing hours. I think even if you have people not paying, but if you don't increase the hours where they're supposed to work.
Yeah,
Really
no, and that's actually one of the, so I mentioned earlier the challenge of recruiting. One of the challenges they've had for the transportation department is having enough bus drivers. And so that's actually been a big challenge the last 2 years. And so some of the plans to expand hours have been dialed back temporarily, hopefully just temporarily, just because there haven't been able to recruit enough people to drive the buses. We have a staff now, and they're able to meet the demands. I think absolutely 100%, we would like to see those expanded hours. We'd like to see them expanded into Sunday. I think one of the things, and again, I don't have Darian Nagel-Gam from the Transportation Department and the city staff are working on some stuff, so I don't want to misspeak, but I'm anticipating that we'll be seeing some more proposals, some more detailed proposals in the coming weeks and months ahead. So I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to be a great thing for our city.
And is this going to increase the bus route, maybe to different cities? I'm talking about it because of the amount of accidents that we have. People are driving, but I might decrease that because if they have a way to get on the bus to go somewhere else instead of just driving when they're tired, I think that will be something good as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you've ever seen any like graphics where it shows like, here's what a city street looks like if you have 20 people traveling in individual cars. Here's what a city streets look like if you have 20 people traveling in a bus, right? And so you have less congestion, you get less accidents. Certainly people are tired and can ride a bus home. You're actually, I think part of what you're asking, or what you're maybe alluding to, is the idea of trying to work with other communities to come up with more of a regional transit approach. And that is actually something that's, that we have been discussing with the other entities. And that's through sort of our, kind of a different avenue. It's through the, like the joint entities sort of thing. And trying to figure out how that's going to work. But yeah, I think long-term, having a regional transit versus city transit would be absolutely the way to go. There's a few moving pieces there. There's the city, Iowa City, there's the university, and there's Coralville, and then there's Johnson County seats. And so there's a lot of moving pieces there that we don't necessarily have all local control over. But yeah, I think that would be the long-term goal, is to get that in place. I totally agree. Yes.
I have a little bit more of a broad question just about the impact areas themselves.
Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about how and why these four were identified for the next, I think this is a 5-year strategy. And what was left off the table there that may have been in conversation, but just didn't make it to these 4?
Oh, boy.
Understanding that this is inclusive and that, you're looking at a lens from climate and diversity and others, but just wanting to know.
Yeah, that's a great question. Some of that relies on my memory, which isn't what it used to be.
Okay.
But yeah, so I mean, so I can tell you this about the process. So as we did this, we went, and some of this was like, as we sort of came up with ideas, things sort of naturally kind of coalesced, kind of clumped together, if you will, accreted into categories that made sense. There were probably, as we got into some of the, like we all had, all of the council members and other staff members all had a list of like, we had like sheets of like, here's specific things we'd like to see. And then it was a matter of, well, we can't possibly have the resources to do all of this. So we did kind of this back and forth sort of negotiation, like we maybe on our own would say, okay, here are my top 5 priorities, and then see how often those matched, and then do we go to 6 or 7 if we want to, or do we was happy with these 5 once we kind of all pool it together? Specifically, which things made the cut, I'm sorry, I just don't remember. But I do remember, I think that, again, I don't want to speak for everybody. For myself, I was happy that we got to this place. One of the things I think that, I'm sure you've all experienced this, that if you have a healthy group, a committee, or a council, that you can have, the end total is greater than the sum of its parts, right? So there's definitely things like I look at this and I look at some of the ideas my fellow councilors brought up. I'm like, oh, that's brilliant. I wish I would have thought of that. I didn't. Thank goodness they're here to think of it. And I hope at least once or twice I made a similar contribution in the other direction. So, no, that is a great question, and I'm sorry, I just don't remember that one.
That's quite all right.
No,
Thanks.
it's all right.
Sorry, going back to what she was talking about, I apologize.
No.
For the other ones that you cannot remember, those other ideas, are they on hold? It's not something that you won't be able to do. I'm giving an example as COVID came. Nobody knew COVID was going to happen, and we didn't know what to do. Something might happen coming from that list that you set aside. Is it something that you might change your mind and saying, let's put this on hold so we can deal with that first? Or is it something you just, it's not part of the 5-year plan?
Well, actually, even more generally, so this is a roadmap and a guide, but it's a living document. The council created it. We can change it if we feel like we need to change it. So one of the things we talked about impact areas, we talked about communities and resiliency and climate. That kind of resiliency is one of those things where specific ideas may come and go. Some may seem more attractive now, some may not pan out. And so, yeah, there'll be a constant interchange of ideas. I think it's safe to say that a council member who had an idea that maybe didn't get a lot of, they'll probably still have that in the back of their mind. So if all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense later on, we'll come back to it. I would anticipate, although there hasn't been any set discussion, but since we have council elections coming up in this fall, in November, that this would be something in some way we would revisit. I don't know if it'd be as extensive or not. I guess that's, I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know the answer to that. But I do remember when we were going through at the beginning, I had asked the question, is this something that we will periodically redo as we get new council members? And the answer to that question was yes. So, but yeah, no ideas ever go away completely, right? If they're a good idea, they can come back, and so.
I have kind of a technical question, and I don't know if council has been updated on this, which kind of piggybacks on what Bijou was talking about, the busing system, and also kind of ties in with the climate change. I know the city has invested in a few electric buses, and I know early on this year, the city applied for a grant with the Department of Transportation to not only add more electric buses, but also with the possibility of building a new bus depot and things like that.
Yes.
Do we have any updates if we ever got that fund, or that's what I say, it's a technical question, so I don't know if council has been updated on it.
That's a great question. I don't know what the status of that is, but you're right, because one of the things that we want to do in our kind of our long-term planning is to relocate the the transportation facility.
Yeah.
Right now, the transportation facility, if you're familiar where it is, kind of south of Highway 6,
Yeah.
It's actually built on what used to be a dump,
Yes.
a landfill. And so if you ever drive through that parking lot, it's got, there are areas that feel a little bit like the surface of the moon because as things have settled over time. And so that's, it's long-term, that's not a facility that's going to, it's reaching the end of its useful life.
Yeah.
And so having a facility that's designed probably over at the Public Works campus that would be designed for the recharging, that would be able to be much more efficient and build those new efficiencies you can get with a newer building. But in terms of that grant funding, I don't know. But that's definitely another reason why, having a grant writer on staff,
Yes.
hopefully will pay off. Before I move on to resources, anything else on the impact areas?
Any question on impact? Guess you can move on, sir.
All right, so we've talked a little bit about some of the challenges. It's nice to sort of think about the resources, the tools we have to get it done, or the tools that we can help facilitate to get it done. So facilities, equipment, and technology. We will, and obviously when we say invest in next generation facilities and safe, healthy workspaces, we're not talking about tomorrow. We're talking about plans over time and looking at what we need and how can we do things the most efficiently. We do want to make sure we have safe and healthy workspaces, as any employer should, right? Pursue high performance governance. So this is somewhat up to the voters, right? But hopefully we're accomplishing that we have people who are in all kinds of positions, from city commissions to city council to city staff and leadership positions, who are invested in this community, that are invested in putting their hearts and souls into it. And again, I love this because I'm speaking to the choir, and so I know you all know exactly what I mean. None of us does this for the elaborate vacations or whatever, right? We do this because we love our community and we want to make a positive change in the world. And so we want to continue to do that. And we want to be sure that we're rewarding technology and innovation as we do different things, as we use data to drive our decisions on what our different departments look like and how they're interacting with the community. That's something we want to reward. We want to make sure as our departments are innovating that we are supporting them, right? People, establish the city as an employer of choice. So from the city perspective as an organization, again, back to what I said earlier, we need to have good people to provide good services for the other good people of our city. And so we need to, and I think we do an okay job with this. There's probably always room for improvement, but making sure that we are treating our workers and staff fairly. That we might ask a lot of them, which I think is absolutely fine, but we want to make sure that we're treating them fairly in return. Building that diverse talent pipeline. This is what we talked about earlier, right? With that, making sure that we are moving people into various commissions, moving them up into additional leadership positions. Maybe some of you will be running for council one of these days, which would be great. We need a constant influx of new ideas, new people, new faces, always kind of doing that they're willing to do that kind of work. We do want to enhance the engagement, the welcoming, and the inclusion of our community to let people know that Iowa City is where they are welcome. And again, it's heartbreaking and disturbing to be in this state, in this day and age. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but Iowa City and our values here are different. And, from the top down, we support the various communities that find themselves under attack today, and we will continue to do so. As long as I'm on the council, and I'm sure that every other council member would say the exact same. Finally, the financial stuff. If we do some of these other things, if we do the thing establishing, all the different ways we boost our city, growing the tax base, diversifying our revenue sources. I used to live in Galesburg, Illinois. Galesburg, Illinois had this huge refrigerator plant. Yeah. That drove that community. And then when it left, It drove it right into the ground. We have some good, we have the university, we have Procter & Gamble, we have some other nice big businesses, ACT. I'm sure I'm forgetting others, please forgive me. The school district, of course. But we also want that diversity in our, not in terms of the people running the businesses, but also the different kinds of businesses in our community. The other thing nice about that is then we can kind of leverage some outside funding sometimes when we get that piece of the puzzle together. And then, maintain healthy reserves and a prudent debt strategy. I know this is something that city staff has worked on. By maintaining our bond rating, we are able, when we have to build like projects and borrow money, we're basically able to get money cheaper than if we had a poor bond rating. So that means we can do more things with the same amount of resources in terms of being able to pay off a bond. That's important, right? Because we do want to do things. And then those healthy reserves, right? So that's why I said we are in the middle of a time where I feel like we are fortunate that has been sort of the practice because we have a cushion now where we can make some decisions without having and prepare once Des Moines lets us know what they're going to do with some of those things. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about all the different kind of partners in our community that we work with, some of whom help with some of these plans. Better Together 2030, the All-In Vision, if you're not familiar with them, definitely check out their website. The University of Iowa Strategic Plan is something we want to be aware of. Obviously, the university, always has something going up or expanding. The Envision East Central Iowa, ECI COG, another great, we talk about things like when we start talking about regional initiatives such as transportation, these are the groups that help facilitate those sorts of planning and goals. And yeah. Okay. Just what's not in the strategic plan. So this I'm sure is something that Jeff would have put in there, 99% of our everyday work. So there's a lot of stuff that happens every day which doesn't hit the level of, it doesn't seem like it hits the level of strategic plan. I'm going to say seems like. Because, the things like when you come in and there's somebody to greet you at City Hall, or those potholes are getting filled, or the parking ramps are being maintained, the water is flowing. But really, it is part of our strategic plan, right? Because we need to have that vibrant community. We need to make sure that the roads in all parts of our community are being maintained, the parks in all parts of our community. That's the everyday work, making sure the parks get mowed and trees get planted and watered and all of those things. The unexpected challenges, if there's another pandemic, which, we certainly can't discount. If we have weather, another derecho or, more tornadoes or anything like that, we don't know, right? So we just kind of try and set things up as best as we can. I think one of the things that helped this city coming into all that happened in 2020 with the pandemic, with the George Floyd murder, and with the derecho, is the fact that this city already had certain visions and ideas and priorities that allowed it to adapt to some of the things probably faster than other communities could have. So that's, I think, a lesson there, is like set your values and priorities carefully. Then when you hit these unexpected challenges, that gives you a starting point. You don't have to start from nothing, right? And who knows, maybe some timely opportunities. So we're looking for more types of initiatives. As various administrations come and go, sometimes they have nice initiatives that help us fund things like roads and bridges and those kinds of things. And then, of course, major ongoing projects that we, street repairs, bridge repairs. We'll be repairing Gilbert Street Bridge here this summer. And apologies in advance because that's going to be a headache. But not as big a headache as if the bridge falls down one day.
That's right.
So every time I say this, like with Rochester, Court Street's coming up, while they're in progress, boy, they are a pain, but when they're done, you're grateful that they're done, so.
Better safe than sorry.
Yes, indeed, indeed. All right, any other questions from commissioners here or online?
I don't have any question, but I have a comment. With the work that the strategic plan already started working on and the staff already working on, we're already starting to see some of those changes. Like you mentioned, the city funding its staff for the shelter house. And we also have noticed the new mental health position with the police department, and also the civil or officers that we have the liaison with the immigrant community, and those are all the stuff that we've been asking as a city, and we're starting to see some of that in fruition. So we hope that will just continue. I know we've been talking about, and one of the conversation that you guys probably picking up is the police department's, I don't even know what to call it, but the reorganization of the police department and adding some more mental health officers. So I'm looking forward to see that, because that's really what makes our city great, and all the nonprofit that we have doing amazing work here. So
Excellent. Well, and thank you all again for your work. And
I think Kelsey has a question, actually.
I beg your
She has her
pardon.
hand raised.
Sorry,
I was
Kelsey.
just gonna call on her. So.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to come back because I so appreciated how you expounded on my question earlier. And I just wanted to share a little bit more of where that was coming from, and maybe an opportunity that we have to continue to work together, which is an invitation for for the City Council to consider in now moving through the action plans and how you've set the strategy for others across the city government and how they'll implement the strategies, and how you'll set the tone for that, to actually include columns of how you want to reach, or how you might see reaching, the values related to racial equity, social justice and human rights, climate action, and partnerships and engagement. I think you've really, City Council has done an incredible job of naming beautiful future visions. And I think that there's an opportunity to connect now the specific actions that will take place by evaluating them back against the values, to really continue to make sure that what you are doing and what we are doing as a city is speaking to itself, and also to achieving the values. There are a couple of resources and guides that are available for city leaders that also help to set the tone for this kind of effort, if you're interested.
Absolutely.
For example, the Annie Casey Foundation has 7 steps to advance and embed race equity and inclusion within your organization. I think that a lot of those steps could also apply within a city government. But then also the National League of Cities has a repository of city racial equity policies and procedures that touches on a lot of the focus areas that City Council has identified in the strategic plan. And so I think as it's moving into its implementation phase more deeply, there are some places where you might find guidance. And I think that this commission too can also help do that work together.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, absolutely. Those sound like wonderful resources. No point in trying to reinvent the wheel, right? So.
I just also want to say thank you so much for all the work that you guys do, that you've been doing, and Iowa City is a better place to live. And I know you said a lot, and I capture a lot more, but when you say listen, we are here to invite to listen. And I know you invite the community to come and listen to you guys' session, and some of you guys do go into the community to listen to them, and I feel like it's important to be more out there for them to be coming out here and working in partnership, which what you say again with other organizations, other leaders, is very, very, very important to try and understand these needs that you guys have here to work towards that better, if you know if that's exactly what the community wants and how they want it.
Yeah,
I think John V has a question as well.
Yeah, thank you. I also wanted to echo that. I also work as a practicum student at Shelter House doing therapy. And I'm hearing from a lot of people there that the program that they're experiencing itself is unlike, they've ever seen. So I believe that very few states are actually able to deliver something that is so amazing and so well planned. And there's a lot that's going on, so kudos to that sort of work. My only question was with regards to if the City Council has any plans also for the growing, we have more and more incoming refugee populations. and if there's any work that's planned for them. I think a lot of times what happens is they get missed out because of language barriers or a lot of other things, even though they're a small percent of the population, but they seem to be dealing with a lot that's going on. And also concerns about undocumented minors. If the city council has any plans or if they're, included in this larger community planning.
So not that I am specifically aware of, although when you mention that, one of the things that pops to my mind is I know we have a large and vibrant Sudanese American community here in Iowa City. And of course, Sudan is going through some horrible violence and some really scary times right now. So that'll definitely be something to circle back to. That's something that we should definitely be thinking about because we'll probably be a haven for some people who have relatives leaving Sudan who have relatives that live here in Iowa City. So,
Yeah, thank you.
thank you.
And I just want to bring it up to you for the city council that, the one thing amazing about working with this group is that they are all involved in community project and they all work in the community. So if there's ever anything we as a HRC can do, please reach out to us. We just have an extensive people here that work all connected to communities. And so let us know how we can help. So.
Yeah, and vice versa. It's a two-way street. My email and phone number are on the website, and I didn't bring any business cards with me. I'm sorry, but I'm generally speaking. It might take a couple of weeks to get it scheduled, but I'm usually okay sitting down with somebody with a cup of coffee or something too. If you want to bend my ear on something, I enjoy doing that. So,
Yep.
And I think Doug has his hand up.
Yep.
Doug has a question.
Yes, thank you.
Comment?
Again, I just want to echo the other commissioners' sentiments. Thank you so much for presenting this. This is incredibly informative. I raised my hand earlier, and Kelsey asked pretty much the exact same question I had. Is really looking at opportunities for the HRC to work more closely with the council on some of these efforts, and be engaged in that. My specific question, though, is, you did mention kind of the legislative climate in Des Moines and how it is really drastically moving in a direction opposed to the values that we've laid out, that you've laid out in this plan, the values of Iowa City. As we see that getting getting worse before it gets better, what does the council have planned? What are there? What actions is the council planning to make sure that those values remain in Iowa City? Given that, yes, it's a part of Iowa, there are certain, there obviously are certain limitations to that, but what is the council? Is there a plan? Has there been discussion on what the council is response to that legislation and that climate?
So it's a little bit like drinking out of a fire hose at this point. So I could, right now, I could ask you which of the 36 different things, and that's not to be dismissive at all, because it's just that big of a thing right now, and they're not done. Ultimately, I think the short version is everything we can. When we can push the envelope, we should push the envelope. When we can use sometimes our actions, because they have taken the legal authority away from us for some things, they haven't taken away our voice. We can use that and use our voice as council members and as representatives of the community. Whether somebody with different values likes it or not, there are 76,000 roughly people in Iowa City, and if those people are the ones that elect us, then it's not just our voice, but the entire community's voice that we speak with. And we need to make sure that we're never quiet on these issues, whether it be something like the resolutions we pass supporting trans visibility, or supporting our Sudanese American community, our Ukrainian community, which we've been supporting, and just raising our voice and letting people know that we are there, and then trying to do the things, sometimes on our own, sometimes in cooperation with others, so that we do have perhaps a greater level of safety net for people who are really sort of as Janavi said, that are in a refugee kind of status, what can we do to make sure that we are either reaching out and funding positions that are going to help that, putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak, because sometimes it just takes many somebodies with the time and the expertise and the skill and the desire to actually go out and do that work. We're not all gifted with the same skill sets and passions and drives and aptitudes, but as a city, we can find people that are, and we can make sure they're supported. And I think that's a big part of whatever solutions we come up with. But boy, you definitely hit the nail on the head. That's going to be so important for our community to maintain its character. The nice thing is, at least we're here in Johnson County, so we're not doing this all by ourselves, right? And so we do have the support of other local bodies of government, and other community members. And so I do take some hope and comfort, and I think whoever it was that said it's going to get worse before it gets better, it's that last part of that sentence, which I also believe and also gives me some hope, because I do think it will get better. But you're right, we gotta make it through until that happens.
Anybody have any more question?
I just have a comment. So I'm Suyin Chen, and I work in the international program at the University of Iowa. So I work with international students. I just think it would be great if the city council can work with local companies to see if they could provide better employment opportunities for international students once they graduate from the university.
Yeah, okay, good. And maybe you can shoot me some, I'm curious now.
Yeah.
Because I know I've had friends that have been, when I was a grad student, from various parts around the globe, and navigating what's allowed and what isn't.
Yes.
I know that can be a complicated mix, but I think absolutely we have talent and things like that from literally around the globe.
Yeah,
And
I
so
just
that would be a really,
hope soon I can hear news oh, I'm staying in Iowa City, just things like that for international students. Yeah.
I mean, I came back here 13 years ago to go to school, and I haven't left yet, so I understand
Yeah.
completely.
Mhm.
And just in piggybacking on what Commissioner Shannon said, not just international student, but I think we can also address a lot of our staff shortage, the workforce shortage we have with immigrant.
Sure.
Because we have such a vibrant, strong work ethic immigrant community here. As a person who runs a business, we know we have a lot of hardworking immigrant, and that's how I've been preaching this, I've been saying this. This is how United States we can address a lot of our workforce shortage, because there's so many countries out there that people that have higher education that do not have jobs. And here sometimes we have more jobs than we have people, but we can address that through immigration. So I'm just gonna keep plugging that away. We can address a lot of our workforce shortage through better immigrant law, so.
Amen.
I'm just gonna say, sorry, I was
go ahead.
refraining
Can
myself.
you use your microphone for
But just like the other commissioner had said, for international students, thank you so much for bringing that up. I think I see here there's a partnership with University of Iowa, and they have their own rules and regulations. But I think it's important to really, really think about international students, not just because of work, but other ways to assist them. They don't have the same opportunities as everybody else, so they struggle a lot, and they feel not forgotten, but put aside. And I think it's important also when you guys think about these grants, to have something for international students. It's really, really, really important.
Oh, that's a
Or
wonderful
hear
idea.
them out as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Sean. We really appreciate you coming and presenting to us.
Thank you for having me, and my apologies to those who were waiting till after my presentation.
Yeah.
Oh, good, good.
We knew today was the day of
You go home and make
presentation.
supper? Thank you all.
Yes.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Then we're gonna jump on to item 6, Better Together 2030.
Pull it up here. Oh, it's on the desktop? Okay.
Yeah, I'll ask them to. Maybe before you guys start, you can tell us a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kate Moreland, here with Better Together, and
Katie Gerlach, Director of Better Together 2030.
And we're going to share tonight a little bit about the All-In Vision, the Better Together 2030 work. And I'm here in kind of a little bit of a historical capacity as well as my new role. So previously I was the president of Iowa City Area Development and was part of the work to bring this vision to life along with some amazing economic development partners and city community leaders. So I just want to share a little bit. As you probably know, we came together during 2020, not knowing what we were doing, what we needed to do, what was coming, and created this weekly meeting called Better Together, and eventually Project Better Together. And that became our weekly check-in on and resiliency kind of work to try to get us through the pandemic. And that changed week to week and what we needed to address. And eventually, about a year into that work, as things were starting to settle down, the vaccines were here, we wanted to pivot because we'd built this trust and this community group. We wanted to pivot to looking ahead and get prepared for what we could continue to do together. And so I'm really proud of that time. We also, during that time, commissioned a study for inclusive economic development. Obviously, with George Floyd, the summer that we had, and all of the issues that happened with our underestimated businesses during COVID who were not protected in the same way with the same resources, we knew we needed to understand the barriers, we needed data, we needed to understand that. And so we worked with ASTIC Planning on the Inclusive Economic Development Plan through ICAD and the Business Partnership. And so we're happy to share both plans with you tonight and how they intersect, along with Sean's great presentation around the city's strategic plan and kind of how everything fits together.
Awesome.
So the sponsors of the Better Together plan are all of our cities, our county, the University of Iowa, the school district, the Community Foundation of Johnson County, United Way, and then our 4 economic development organizations, ICAD, the Business Partnership, Think Iowa City, and the Iowa City Downtown District. We all came together with funding to be able to move this project forward in the fall of 21. All the years are going together. So the process, we worked with a futurist, Rebecca Ryan, who had worked with many other communities. We talked with Omaha, Chattanooga, Tennessee, some of the others she'd worked with. She had a really unique process. And that's really what made us choose her as our facilitator. She does the foresight process, which involves looking at trends and data and understanding what's coming and whether or not your community is ready for what's coming. And what might happen if the community does nothing and we just kind of let that happen. What would the difference be? So it was a really interesting exercise for all of us that participated, and I want to share a little bit. We had 32 steering committee members, all the way from some very incredibly insightful high school students up into the president of the university and leaders in between. We had 3 tri-chairs, Angie Jordan, the president of the university, and myself, who kind of helped shepherd the process along with Rebecca Ryan. We analyzed 36 trends from our community, both on a local level, a statewide level, and a national level, to understand a lot of the data. We always talk about growth, but if we don't dig into where are we growing, what communities are growing inside of our community, and then understanding the needs of those communities, we needed to dig deeper and really understand the landscape of our community. We had a big sort, and we took these trends and we started to talk about which ones were the most critical, which ones did we have some control over. And I think back to that time and even what's happened with our government in our state, some of those that we had control over, we seem to have less control over. But that process really helped us narrow down kind of the priorities. We did a major survey out to the community. It was still a time when people were not coming together very much, so we did try to do that electronically. We had 15,000 votes in our community throughout Johnson County. And then Angie Jordan did an amazing job bringing people together through the Circles process to get feedback in person and on Zoom from members of our community that we wanted to hear from them. We wanted to understand if these priorities made sense to them, and it was a really informative process. And that led us to the All-In Vision. And this vision is all about being authentic to who we are in Johnson County. And as we look back over time, we are the first in many incredible areas. Lifting the ban on interracial marriage, same-sex marriage, being able to lead in the area of Title IX and women's athletics, which we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of just this year. Mazahir being elected as the first Sudanese American. And so many of those firsts, we know that we lead. We have led in this country, we have led as a community, and so we wanted to kind of look at our authentic community values and the things that we have developed over the years and really build on top of that a vision to take care of people and to continue those values moving forward. And so we're going to share a video that we put together to be able to illustrate kind of the reason this vision came together. And it's a North Star for all of Johnson County, and kind of some of the background information on how this was developed.
Hopefully this song will work.
The All-In Vision Plan is essentially the first vision and strategic plan we have for this community. It's our North Star guiding all of our work collectively. It involved many stakeholders across the community. And it's a plan. It's a plan of action, a dynamic plan for making this really the best place to live, work, and learn.
So throughout the vision process, we recognized that there was a way that we wanted to do this work that felt and looked different. We know we need representative leadership. It's incredibly important that we have all voices at the table and an opportunity for leadership throughout our community. We know we need a growth mindset to be able to think beyond today and create the future for the next several generations. Being able to leverage the assets from different parts of our community, different organizations, to be able to put assets together differently, to be able to advance and solve big problems. It really is about solving problems, about thinking big and working together.
The floods of '93 and 2008 caused us to turn our backs on the Iowa River. That is about to change. 12 miles from the Coralville Reservoir Dam to the south edge of Iowa City, while healthily maintained, were largely ignored. A community that loves outdoor recreation, as evidenced by the hundreds of miles of trails in Johnson County, has not embraced the beauty of the winding river that cuts through its own heart. The Iowa River will become a transformational gathering spot for residents and visitors alike. They'll get to experience the river directly through canoe, kayak, paddleboard, and paddleboat rentals. Participate in the river's care and maintenance through volunteer and civic efforts, and enjoy the river as a setting for dynamic community events like riverfront art, music, and cultural gatherings. The BT 2030 vision work will deepen partnerships between the University of Iowa and regional stakeholders to develop and execute sustainable environmental practices in clean and renewable energy.
We believe that good neighbors build great neighborhoods, and great neighborhoods make for a more connected and resilient community. We have to move beyond this idea that you have to come to the rec center, or you have to come to the library, or you have to come to city council meetings to engage with your city. Now, with over the past couple of years, we've really focused on bringing rec programming into the parks. We've focused on bringing the summer reading program into the neighborhoods. We focus on making sure we have elected officials at events where people can run into them and interact with them. We have events like a playground crawl. we're highlighting existing amenities, but we're building these connections between these neighborhoods and having people explore them. Your neighborhood can be beyond a couple blocks in a town. It can be the whole town if you just shift your perspective. Inviting everyone to the table and really listening and investing in the time of what people want to do. It's not one meeting and you're done. I mean, this is a long game. You're getting to know the people that are really outgoing and coming up to you. And then you're also, really building the relationships with folks that aren't calling the city normally.
A well-connected mobile region is so important because we know that people in Iowa City, Coralville, North Liberty, and all the towns in Johnson County live, work, and play everywhere. You don't just stay in the place where your bed is at night. You don't just stay where your office is. And so we have to be able to move people and information effectively from place to place. People need to be connected by transportation in a lot of different modes. We want people to be able to walk, bike, take the bus, maybe take a train, as well as rely on their cars, but hopefully less and less. Increasing mobility between our communities will help with equity and access for everyone. Because if everybody has the chance to get from place to place and to share information quickly and freely, we know that will lift everyone up.
Anything that you're doing that's going to affect everyone really needs to include everyone, and not just at the end or in the middle, but from the very beginning, so that you can get all these different perspectives, but you can also start building relationships that you're going to need once plans get made to actually do action with the folks that are included. Inclusive economic development to me means bringing folks together in safe spaces that we can replicate over and over. And I think what's really special about the South District SMID is that it was dreamed up and it was spearheaded by the residents and the neighborhood that wanted and believed they need a thriving business district, a cohesive, inclusive, representative business district to have the neighborhood be resilient and sustainable.
When we think about the work that we did collectively during the pandemic, one of the amazing things that happened was we all came together with this mindset of saying yes. And it really allowed us to see partnerships, cross collaborations, and how we could maybe imagine delivering services in a new way. And so the possibilities of how we design the future based on that feedback is really exciting. One of the things about the Better Together 2030 work that I'm so excited about is this idea that if we use data and we use the information that we know about the needs of Johnson County, what is possible for the future? If we were all pointing at the same North Star to provide funding and support and research and learning and collaboration together, could we really make an impact, really what I call transformational change in that area?
As we came out of 2020, how do we get all this great collaboration going on? How do we continue that? How do we take a common crisis that bound us to having a common vision that binds us and continues that collaborative work moving forward? So then came Better Together 2030.
We need to have radical candor, have difficult conversations so that we can get all of the issues out onto the table and we can start addressing them from a variety of different perspectives. There is no easy solution to any one of our problems, but it takes very complex and collaborative conversations to get to the solutions that are really the best.
So economic development has really changed over the last 5 to 10 years, and we need to adapt our strategies to solve for that. And what used to happen is we'd work to attract large business to come here so that the people would follow. And now we need to attract the people who bring new ideas, that create businesses, and then businesses want to be where the people are living. So it's really kind of reversed, and community development has become such a cornerstone of our work. And that is something we need to do with all of our partners, all of our community leaders. It's really an all hands on deck effort to develop the type of community where people want to be, businesses want to be, and everyone can thrive.
Just keep going. And that is where we get to today with the 2030 vision. So you heard Councilmember Harmson describe that as a real piece of what Iowa City was able to do in terms of analyzing that and thinking through that as they address their own strategic plan. Iowa City informed our vision and our community's vision. And I think I was saying it takes probably like 75 slides to explain all of these. So that's why we have the video. And I think the video does a great job of explaining each pillar and kind of the highlighting focus. I will say that for some reason, our font does not transfer to city computers, but I can tell you it's much better in real life. So what have we been up to? Better Together 2030 is actually a community development corporation. So Better Together Community Development Corporation was incorporated in January of this year. Our board is made up of elected officials from municipalities, community members, and nonprofit and private business leadership. So our first official meeting is May 2nd, so you'll hear about that. And we are really just very busy with incredibly engaged projects and work groups. We've been rolling this out to various municipalities and have had meetings with local leaders across sectors and identified collaborative opportunities. We have a few funds established at the Community Foundation of Johnson County. We've held the Excellence in Action Awards, and we have these incredible work groups set up right now for each of the 5 pillars. So these were our Excellence in Action Award winners. You might recognize a few faces in there. But each of the 5 pillars, we've identified opportunities for Iowa City boards and commissions, and particularly the Human Rights Commission. And so I wanted to go through these today. These are our 5 pillars. Each of these have a work group of established leadership across the different communities. And I will say that Iowa City has taken an incredibly poignant role in taking on some of the hardest projects in here, but also taking on the leadership. And so we hope that the Human Rights Commission and specific commissioners will also want to get involved in these work groups. For Champions of the Natural Environment, we think there's opportunities for attraction for visitors and tourists, as well as international visitors alike. There's opportunity to address our climate action goals and parks and recreation. And the Pillar 1 work group is really intentional about making sure that social justice and racial equity is included in that, because you can't enjoy the river if you can't enjoy the river safely. And we also know that not all communities have the same access to water safety training. And so our parks and recreation departments have been incredibly focused on making sure that we have equal access and equitable access to swimming lessons and riverfront safety activities. Under Pillar 2, Authentic, Vibrant Neighborhoods and Districts, you'll see we have a lot of opportunities for arts, culture, engagement. 15-minute cities, I was excited to see that appear in the Iowa City plan. We have SMIDs. We help support the creation of the South District SMID, and now called South of 6. So we have a 5th economic development partner at the table. And affordable housing. A well-connected mobile region, as you heard, is so important to everyone, and Iowa City leads the way with the best-built infrastructure for making sure that we take that on. That work group is really heavily engaged in the bus rapid transit study that the MPO is undertaking to make sure that we are connecting our workforce with the new hospital in North Liberty, and that they have a fast and effective means to get to work. Because we know once that hospital is built and people establish their behavior and their patterns, it'll be pretty hard to go back. So we want to make sure that bus rapid transit is an option at the outset. We've also been supporting broadband activation, especially to rural communities and rural spots in Johnson County that might have dead zones, and that includes mobile home parks and other places where people might find affordable housing. Bike trails and transportation is a part of that. In the fourth pillar, which we'll talk about more deeply today, a thriving, inclusive economic ecosystem, there's opportunity for granting and internal work and supporting the internal work for business support organizations. That includes existing and new and developing organizations. And part of our Reimagined and Human Social Services pillar, which is about community well-being and overarching community well-being, is developing capacity and partnerships and stewarding funding initiatives and work groups so that our incredible service agencies can continue to do the work they're doing and be recognized as the essential services that they are. So here's a sneak peek at our first 15-minute city map. You can see there is one 15-minute city in Iowa City right now, and you probably know where that is. But we have a couple that are really on the precipice of a 15-minute city, and this is a walkable 15-minute city. So we're working with some GIS mappers in the university, as well as planners in each of the municipalities to make sure that we're developing this map in a way that makes sense and also helps improve planning and structuring of development goals. We will be launching the first ever in North America at this time, multi-unit, multi-story 3D printed affordable housing project. And that's going to be on the east side of Iowa City. Iowa City has reserved a lot, and we're working with hopefully selling 3 of the units to low-income homeowners and 3 units to nonprofit partners who wish to purchase those units. So 3D printing is one way that we can address affordable housing issues, we believe, in the future, and we'd like to nurture that and see if we can make it happen locally. We've also been involved in the child care wage enhancement. What that does is that pays $2 per hour more to child care workers without raising the cost of tuition to parents. So we hold the fund at the Community Foundation, and we've helped steward those ARPA funds into that established fund, as well as develop the program goals and implementation. Some of our community members have developed a youth community leadership program. So the community leadership program is something that exists through the Chamber of Commerce Business Partnership today, but there isn't one for youth. And so these community members got together and have established one for youth that will be taking off in the next year. So one of the things we were charged with in the plan is implementing the Inclusive Economic Development Plan. And you heard a little bit about that earlier from Kate. So Iowa City Area Development Group, or ICAD, and the Iowa City Area Business Partnership, formerly the Chamber, joined in funding SDEG Planning, owned by V. Fixmer Arrays, to develop the Inclusive Economic Development Plan. So SDEG undertook this process with their staff to create a collaboration of multiple stakeholders, and they focused on underestimated businesses in Iowa City. This plan identified recommendations for municipalities, business support organizations, and community partners to make an impact in uplifting, improving, and creating our ecosystem for underestimated businesses. The process identified barriers and solutions throughout, highlighting both opportunities and existing efforts, as well as undertook projects already to get started. So this is from the plan, and the plan's been translated into 5 languages, I believe, and we're working to get that uploaded on various websites. But here are some of the solutions and opportunities that the plan identified that would help underestimated businesses achieve success in our community. And here are some of the barriers they saw. Rent was a barrier, gaps of resources, lack of access, or importantly, perceived lack of access. Even if organizations believed they were creating access, there was a perception that there was a lack of access to financial banking systems. They felt there was a lack of access to childcare and perhaps a hostile business support system environment, and missing relationships with trusted bankers, accountants, lawyers, and business support systems, as well as a short supply of business mentors. So the plan came through with these recommendations, and that is neighborhood-level multicultural business hubs that could offer these pillar work, but also behind-the-scenes support and then some public-facing support. So they identified that we needed to have changes in policies and procedures at multiple levels, both locally, within businesses, within business support organizations, and at the municipal level. That there's internal work for local government and business support institutions that needs to happen, including anti-racism training that this commission supports regularly, and translation of publicly available documents, creating clearer permitting processes, bolstering entities and orgs that are currently supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs, including strengthening of collaborative partnerships, providing resources to underestimated entrepreneurial and the business community, and building infrastructure to create spaces for underestimated business communities to thrive. So with that plan, which it's a wonderful plan, and I'll make sure that you have the link to it, we're actually asking this commission to help us get this plan out into the public. We would hope that you could review the all-in vision plan, which we just went over briefly, and that if you could review the inclusive economic development plan in depth, we would ask that this commission take that plan and recommend that the inclusive economic development plan be adopted formally by the City Council of Iowa City. So that inclusive economic development plan has informed the ARPA funding process. You might see those granting processes come through. It actually has established the framework for that, but the city has not formally adopted the plan. If Iowa City were to adopt it, it would be the first municipality to do so. And it would be a great show of leadership, we think, for it to come from this commission, who's been so instrumental in leading the charge in a lot of human rights and social justice issues that our city council has adopted. It would be great for you to highlight these plans in your sponsorships and have key opportunities for programming with, you sponsor so many amazing events and activities. It'd be great to highlight how those are affected in the plan and how they impact people in our community. And we'd love to have each of you get involved in our work. I noticed that many of you said you were involved in different communities. We also work with Welcoming Week in Iowa City in September, and we'd love to involve you in our planning process. We're working with refugee and immigrant associations to create an inclusive Welcoming Week from the Welcoming America initiative. So our work group, the Pillar 4 work group is here on behalf today, and that's Liz Hubing for MyCAD, V. Fixmer Arrays, Angie Jordan, Kate Moreland, and myself. And we just thank you for your time and the opportunity to share more, and we'd love to answer any questions or provide you with any other resources.
Wow, this is amazing so far. This is awesome. I'll let the commission, if you have any questions. Well, I have comments. I have some comments. First of all, I love the work that you guys have done with Angie Jordan, and we are seeing the outcome of that in the South District. You know, it's amazing. Some worries, you know, when Kirkwood leaves, what's going to happen in that area that's already dying with the Sycamore Mall. We can't seem to keep anything in that area. So kind of worrying about that area. Maybe we can do something amazing like the South District taking over the whole area and doing something fun with it. So, but it's just amazing. I have been blown away with the work that you guys have been doing. I like to see more, connect more, like I talked earlier, our immigrant community, because we have so many people from so many different countries here that are doing great work. Sometimes I don't think we highlight them enough. Because if you go to the university, probably 30 or 40% of most of our doctors are immigrant. Professors. I'm just not talking about entry-level workers. I'm talking about professional high-level workers. I just don't think we bring them enough to connect them to what we're doing with our economic development. That was always my beef with the chamber, the old chamber, because I just felt like they were the forgotten group. They're doing all those work. They keeping our restaurant going, our hospitality going, you know, the hospital, all of our workers. But there was never a plan to increase the immigrant community in a lot of our Chamber of Commerce work. So that always was one of my my beef. I thought it was gonna increase when we started doing all those chamber started sponsoring trips to other country. I went with the chamber to Ireland on that trip, and we talk about going to Brazil. We talk about but we wanted to visit other country, but we didn't talk about the immigrant community that we had here, how to get them involved in our day-to-day business space. So I just love the collaboration that you guys have been able to do here. So.
It took 2 women at the helm of those organizations to change some of the cultural things, I would say.
Yes.
Kate and Kim are to be commended of how they've shifted
Yes.
the culture of how we approach economic development in our community.
It is amazing.
Yeah, I'd say I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and finding someone to help facilitate through this process, and that foresight exercise that you went through. I think you can really see that helped to guide and identify the opportunities that really is going to drive the economic development of Johnson County and be the North Star that is what this plan is supposed to be. I wonder if you could share. Do you feel like there's going to be any challenges with this getting adopted by City Council? I'd love to hear just what that next step is looking like for you all.
We have never asked.
No. So it's not like they declined to.
Right.
We never asked. We came here
This
first.
is- okay.
And so, yeah,
Okay.
we just thought this might be the best avenue.
And I think you'll see, like Sean said, they worked on this restructuring plan, but they never actually adopted it.
Yes.
V went before them and presented their findings before they were elected. And now V's in a harder spot that they can't come necessarily and present due to their elected office. And
Yeah.
so, we realized maybe we just need to ask. Because right now it lives on V's old website. And so we need to have a home for this inclusive economic development plan. And Better Together 2030 is a good home for it, but we don't own it. Just like we don't own the All Envision Better Together, our community owns it. We all own this plan, and we all owe our communities the responsibility to activate it.
Does anybody else have any question? People online?
No, I'll just say that I'd be interested in being a part of the Welcoming America initiative, and you can count me in on that, and
So
look
you
forward to
met-
hearing more.
That's how we met, right? So-
Yeah.
So it's kind of like extension of that project, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was on that project.
Oh, wonderful.
Before COVID, right?
So the thing that we've learned with Welcoming Week too is that the Refugee and Immigrant Association and the Refugee Alliance is helping drive some of this work too, because we're wanting to make sure that the programming speaks to people that we wanted to welcome, that maybe what would have been welcoming to them.
Yes.
And so we've done a lot of fact-finding in the last month. ELL classes at Kirkwood, we've gone and done listening sessions about what types of events. Food was the number one, sharing food and culture and music, board games. There's a plan for a multicultural festival on the Ped Mall, and I think there's a big role for each of you individually as commissioners, but for the HRC to be involved in that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's my second time seeing this, and just wanted to say great job. Really like how you really targeted who the gatekeepers were within those marginalized communities and brought them into the space and gave them a voice.
It gets better the second time, right?
And I think we have you pegged to help maybe with the youth leadership program, right? I
I'll have to think about that due to my
you had
current
some
time
interest.
commitments,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in the future, I would be interested for sure.
We're also really good nudgers, so we consider ourselves, we're professional nudgers, but we've just been so impressed with the level of interest in our community in this work, and we know there's a lot of work to do, but if we've learned anything the last couple of years, we really only have each other.
Yes.
And we need to rely on each other and do this work together.
Yeah, there's just so much that I like. I like the 15-minute city. I'm interested to see the 3D printed affordable. Maybe that will be the answer to all of our affordable housing issues. So I I just like it all, so.
Well, we'll be back to present more and keep you updated on our progress.
real
It looks,
quick.
oh, it looks like Kelsey
Yeah,
has
Kelsey
a.
has a question.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge, I mean, I actually am sorry I haven't read more of this previously because I think you absolutely answered the question I had earlier when speaking with Sean about the strategic plan of what does it actually look like to take the future vision that we have as a community that's represented in the strategic plan and actually beyond just thinking about the lens of human rights and racial equity and social justice, but actually in practice and specifically, what does that look like? You've done it here. So I just wanted to thank you for that effort and that work and to say that I think it would be great to continue to talk together and work together of how can we implement this in our community? How can we be sure? So thanks for having a direct ask for us tonight. Thank you for all of your thoughtfulness and even coming to prepare and present this tonight. And thanks for all of your time.
And John V. Peter told me to say hi to you. Peter Gerlach is my spouse. He was jealous I was going to see you tonight.
Oh, yes, yes. Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I wish I was there.
Well, I think that's...
Peter does great, amazing work for international students and for students in general, and also for the refugee population. I have tremendous respect for the work he does.
Yeah, and I just want to say I feel very lucky that Katie Gerlach said yes to this endeavor. She has done so much for this community, and I just want to acknowledge that her level of expertise, her ability to work with others, collaborate, is everything we needed in this position, and she is just doing a phenomenal job. It's a big job.
It is.
And so as we continue to bring people into the fold to support her as well, because this is all of our community coming together, wherever you have an interest, wherever you have a passion, to help support this effort. But I really want to give kudos to Katie for all of her hard work to get this moving forward. And every fall, we'll be honoring community members through the Excellence in Action Awards for their work in this plan.
Well, we appreciate the ask that you have asked of the HRC. We're going to discuss it and talk to Stephanie and see what we can do.
And I'll send the plan that I have to Stephanie, and I know
Yes.
V would be honored to speak more about it with you, but maybe couldn't bring the direct ask in the way that we were able to.
Yes.
But I know if we can bring V to another conversation, they can talk to you about the process, and
Yes.
We'd be happy to do that as well.
Thank you. If you can send it to Stephanie, then she'll be able to send it to all of us.
Thank you.
And we'll talk more. Well, thank you very much for
your time.
Your time and coming over here and talking to us about this. This is amazing stuff. So
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for all your work. in
Thank
this
you.
mission. It's
Thank you.
incredibly important.
all right, Commissioner, we're moving on to item 7, outreach and engagement, Police Department. I don't see anybody here today.
Yeah, Kevin had to defer that till the June meeting.
Okay. There was an email that came out. What? They came to speak at the last meeting about, yeah.
They shared more about their visit.
Okay.
But-
I'm in a transition of my email, so I think I'm missing some stuff. so-
okay.
Well, thank you. Item 8, racial equity and social justice. We have a new budget from Natural Music that we needed to approve, not approved, but voted on because we give them less than what they ask as funding, so they send us a new budget. So if you can review that and we can vote on that, that will go on the record.
It's only for the 5.
Yeah.
It's only 45 people that work on the grant, sorry. So that'll be myself.
It looks good to me, like the new, like updated version.
Yes. It looked good to me too. So that's the 5 of us. So we'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I second.
Moved by John, second by Shannon. Any discussion? No? All in favor, the five of you say aye. That'll be aye for me.
Aye.
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 All right, we got it 5-0. Moving on to our large agenda. Item 9, Commission Committee Overview and Assignment Updates and Proclamation. I know we have one proclamation coming up, and that will be Commissioner Johns and Shannon will be accepting that, and they are a member of the community, so we look forward for you guys accepting that.
But we'd welcome anyone else to join as well.
They welcome anybody else, and they're gonna invite maybe some people from the community to attend that as well. And that will be next Tuesday, right? At 6 o'clock. It's usually the first thing in the agenda, so first 5 minutes, so.
Could you please describe what the proclamation is?
Yes, you wanna talk a little bit about it?
Just what the proclamation,
Because I know you guys been working with Stephanie on the proclamation.
The Tuesday one, the one that you wrote.
right.
Yeah.
So the Tuesday proclamation is in celebration and recognition of Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And we worked with Stephanie to send over the proclamation to the mayor for his review. He will read the proclamation, and then we will work together on a collective kind of response to the proclamation that we will be presented next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Subcommittee updates, building bridges.
We are here.
You guys have any update for us?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Kelsey, sorry.
Kelsey,
Sure.
presenting.
Yeah. So we had some delays in having our first meeting amongst the three of us, John V. Bijou and myself. So we had our first conversation since the last time that the Human Rights Commission met just a couple weeks ago. And so it really was a chance where we were able to set the course of some of the goals and walking through the subcommittee template of really identifying together as a new subcommittee what our shared outcomes and specific goals are moving forward in this coming year. We retain that guiding light, North Star kind of framing for us remains being around fostering the connections to bring together voices across the community that are already making impact. And that our ultimate outcome is that our community leaders, both those that are already recognized as well as those who are not yet recognized, are positioned to be aware of each other's work, find places where they can assist each other, and by doing so, improve the quality of our community in upholding human rights. So we have brainstormed a few opportunities, but as I mentioned, this was really our first opportunity to speak amongst the three of us and set the course. And so we're in exploratory phase right now. And I think for our next meeting, we'll have some we'll have minutes and notes that we'll share in advance so that you can see the progress of how we're thinking about some specific activities. So I'll leave it there for now and see if anyone else from the subcommittee would like to share anything else.
Thank you, Kelsey. Anybody else?
No, I think you've said it all. And then if we have minutes, we'll share with you guys for next time.
Thank you, guys.
Jan V, probably.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you summed it up well.
Thank you, guys. Then moving on to RRR. That's me, Commissioner Johns, and Commissioner Shannon. So I will refer to Commissioner Shannon first to share some of the work that we're doing. Then I'll bring Commissioner John to talk about some of our grant work. Also, we did not have the minutes, but we'll share with you guys next time as well, too. So.
As Sylvia mentioned, May is Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So as a subcommittee, we have decided to co-host the AAPI Awareness Festival with the local Chinese community. And Parks and Rec Department is going to provide support. So the event is scheduled on Saturday, May 20th from 2 to 4 p.m. So we would like support from the co-commission for that event.
May 20th, Saturday, May 20th,
Yes.
2 to 4.
2 to 4 p.m.
Yeah, at the Robert Lee.
Robert E. Lee Recreational Center.
And Stephanie, I do have a couple questions for that. I talked to Mallory, and she said she's not gonna help with like marketing. So.
Yeah, I spoke with Mallory. I
Yeah.
think marketing and what we do are, I think it's terminology. Marketing, I mean, generally speaking, the city doesn't usually have marketing plans for events or programs.
Okay.
What we usually do is a news release and things like that.
Okay, how about like flyer? Do we have a graphic
I'm
design?
sorry.
Like poster, flyer, like graphic design perspective?
There's somebody who does that, but I can't, they do their schedule. So,
Oh.
I can see if they're available, but I can't guarantee that. I know recently, weren't able to do a few things for us because they were just overloaded with
Okay,
stuff, so.
okay.
If you need someone to do something, I can put something together, as long as we have high resolution logos that we want to put on there.
Okay.
I can throw something together.
Mhm.
It may not be as beautiful as what
Okay.
that professional person, but
Yeah.
But it will do the work.
Okay.
it'll do the job, and and I'm happy to jump in if needed.
Okay, good. Thank you so much.
Of course.
And we're kind of in between interns, so usually they kind of help with that. But with the scheduling of this, I'm not sure if the newest person would be that fluent quickly enough to be able to assist, so.
Well, I think with Sylvia helping, I think we can get it on because
Okay,
we kind of need to start moving on it. If
Sure, yeah. Okay, sounds
If you just send me the copy, I can put it together, and then we'll
Okay,
go through
sounds
a
good.
couple of
Yeah.
edits.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. So, will you take care of the news release from, like, human rights commissions, or we need to take care of that? Like, sorry, I cannot interrupt
Like
you
a news
earlier.
release?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would work to get that sent out.
Okay, okay, great.
But there, I would probably need like a draft of what you as a subcommittee would want included in that.
Maybe we have the flyer first.
Have the flyer,
Yeah.
part of the
Okay,
news
good.
release.
Okay,
Yes,
sounds
so-
good.
We'll get it done. Yeah.
Okay, good. You.
Fantastic. An update on the racial equity and social grant kind of plan is that we came together and started to think about what does a grantee experience look like for that's sustainable for our commission members, but also is meaningful and engaging with those who have received this grant. And so we're going to continue to talk about that in our next meeting and plan to kind of share it with you all during the next commission meeting as well. In the meantime, we did go ahead and identify of the 8 grantees that are coming up. We've assigned them and selected them for each of the 3 on the commission, on the sub-task force, and will be working as their ally with them throughout their one-year grantee experience. And we're happy to share, maybe Roger has the list, but also afterwards, we're happy to share the breakdown. And we did it, based on our own interests in the community, and also thought about which ones may be more focused on events versus programmatic, and tried to just blend it out amongst us 3.
Yeah, I'll answer your question in a minute. So the way we kind of divided the 8 grantee that we have among the 3 of us, so Sylvia will take Great Plain and the Neighborhood Center, and Commissioner Shannon will take the Natural Music Talent, Houses to Home, and Almond Center, and I will take Wright House of Fashion, Center for Worker Justice, and the Crisis Center. So we kind of be their liaison to the grants that's starting on July 1st. So, we're still discussing the content of what we would do as the liaison. One of the things we actually want to do is visit the project or participate in a project. So we kind of aware of what's going on and more, besides just getting the quarterly report. So we're gonna discuss that more at our next subcommittee meeting, really putting things in place. What are the work that we're gonna do as a grant experience? We also wanted to ask Stephanie, so we usually give the check goes out in June, right?
Actually, the checks are being processed depending on what we've received from the organizations.
Okay.
So the ones that have sent W-9s and have returned the agreement that we make them sign, their checks are being processed now.
Have we already, so we haven't handed them the check yet?
They're mailed to them.
Okay. So, yeah.
It'll just
So
be
if you're
in
talking about
ceremony.
like a ceremony where you would like give a,
We just wanted to
bigger
invite them
check.
to the meeting and hand them out the check and introduce them to their liaison. But if, we know in the past, it just would.
why don't we try to connect? And I think, there's probably a way to do that.
Okay.
Still, it may not be the actual check.
It might not
but-
be, yes, yes.
But yeah.
Yes.
So-
We understand it might not be the actual check, but
Okay,
we,
so so as long as we're on so are you looking to do that then at a special meeting or just?
we thought maybe the check usually gets to them at the end of June, or we can do it at the June meeting because they start their work July.
Correct.
So that way it'll just be a ceremonial thing. We can allow maybe 10 to 20 minutes at our commission meeting. We can invite them and thank them for all the work they're doing in the community and do the ceremonial presentation and introduce them to whoever is going to be their liaison, then so we can just elevate that experience.
And we'll put together a slide deck and make sure that they're also given a proper orientation as to kind of what this new grantee experience will look like for them. Again, the main point of this is really for us to build relationships, reciprocal relationships with these grantees, to know what's going on with them on a monthly basis, to be able to share that with the commission and the community, invite them to events, also provide support as and when necessary, but really just to be their partner in this grantee experience throughout the year.
Okay. I'll make a note to put that on the June.
Okay.
All right.
Then I'll
This
touch
is-
base with the three of you closer to that date.
Yes.
Maybe this is more for Stephanie. Now that the 5 already made the decision and stuff, are we able to get a copy of the grants the copy of what you have just for?
Oh, yeah.
Is it on a website or?
I don't, a copy of the applications?
No, you're talking about the award.
The award and the 8 people that have received, like the copy that they have.
Well, this is what I have, just talking about what they got. But we had this in the agenda because we actually voted on it
This was on the agenda?
at the last.
Oh, I didn't pay
Yeah,
attention.
and there was a really nice kind of press release that came out through the city that has each of the grantee recipients and kind of a paragraph of what they're doing, and maybe Stephanie can share it out
Actually,
with us.
Stephanie put that together.
If she has
Oh.
it, then I can just go back into the
Okay.
email that she sent. with the
That
agenda.
was.
I can resend it.
That was when I went to the city council meeting to present and for them to approve the resolution. So Stephanie actually put that together, which,
I can just send it out to the
Yes,
Human Rights Commission
that'd be
email
great.
list.
that's the
But the-
meeting, that's
but
the
the-
meeting that it was, I had to wait until midnight.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes, it was a long meeting, from 6 to midnight. So Stephanie can send that.
Yeah, I made a note. I'll get it sent tomorrow.
Thank you, Stephanie.
I wondered if I could just ask a question of
Yeah.
the subcommittee. I mean, first, just kudos. This sounds like a really exciting opportunity and idea, and I'm grateful that you thought of it and you're enacting it. If you find that they're having volunteer days or volunteer opportunities, as three of you are working quite closer and being sure to have ties and relationships with the 8 recipients, would you mind sharing those opportunities or passing them along or noting them to the Human Rights Commission members? Because I think it would be really exciting. I know maybe we don't all attend one, and I think it would have to be welcomed by the grant recipients and not intrusive, but it would be wonderful to join any welcome volunteer days.
Yes, that definitely. And we also talk about sharing the event date with the commission as well, because commissioner can attend the event. So if it's just like, last year we went to the truth giving, so we'll share those dates as well. So.
And I think the plan is, and the responsibility of the commission is that, and this specific task force committee, is that every month when we meet as a group, that we're updating the group on what's going on, anything new and exciting, or anything that they may want volunteers for or advice on. So that should be part of our relationship with our respective grantees, and then our duties as commissioners for just sharing out with the larger commission as well.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Breaking Bread, any updates?
Yeah, I can take this one. So Ahmed and I met. Badri wasn't with us, but we met and talked through some ideas and goals for Breaking Bread. And it's for us, it's mostly about visibility of the commission and getting our work out into the community, so that more people are aware of what we do, aware of us as a resource, and that we as a commission are aware of what's going on in the community and increasing our visibility. So we brainstormed some ideas, one being possibly some education sessions, either in person or virtually, just to present on what the HRC is, what we do, the section of the city charter that deals with our work, as well as the grants and awards that we do, and updating folks on that work. Another thought that came to me tonight as the Better Together people were presenting was that video was amazing, and
yes,
we do a little video of us and our group. One holdover idea from last year is the community park gatherings as summer is coming up. I know the police department does outreach at those events, and that was an idea that Ashley and Jason and I talked about last year, that as the summer comes around and those neighborhood events are happening, that we table or are at least have a presence at those. And whether that's the three of us on Breaking Bread, or if the other commissioners want to get involved, I think that the more of us that are out there and able to talk to the neighborhood. It's almost 9:00 here, and I'm starting to lose the ability to speak coherently. Sorry, but to get out in those neighborhood gatherings and be visible and meet citizens and meet the people out there, and then just being, I think some of our more visible work in the past couple of years have been some of the statements that we've released in response to things in our community, both kind of on a micro level in Iowa City, like the protests at the public library, things like that, as well as on the larger scale. I know we released statements in the past on Supreme Court decisions, on the George Floyd protests, things like that. So just being a little, more involved when there are human rights issues that are going on, both in our local community and the world at large, that we can have a voice, and that we express that voice, and that we are a visible, strong, powerful advocate for human rights and in the Iowa City community. So that's what we discussed. I don't have formal minutes, but I will type those up, and we will share those at our next meeting as well.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys, for all the subcommittee for meeting and starting the work. So I appreciate you all.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any question for Doug and Mohammed?
No, I just will second that thought about the video and how powerful that can be, and even putting subtitles and different languages on it. And will offer my as I did with the design of the poster. I've done a lot of video production and storyboarding and all of that, and another life that still continues to creep in. Anyways, I'd be happy to also put my eye towards that if you needed another person.
And I think in the past, City Channel 4, I mean, you just have to schedule it out, but I
Yes.
think I don't remember, I know Bijou, I think, was in, yeah, I don't, Roger, were you on the?
I was on one too, yeah.
I did the,
And I
Am
think
I missing somebody else? I know.
I did one.
Sylvia, okay.
but this is more of a, so they would be a partner in producing a video of that quality, of that type, that's more of a promotional, this is who we are, this is what we do.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
I mean, you'd have to work with,
You have to work with Ty or Jack.
yeah, I mean, I can't say it's going to be tomorrow.
Oh, I mean, of course not.
Well, I just want to, some of the constraints are just, if I only have 3 weeks, it's just, I can't always, have another department step in and be able to do it. But if they
Yes.
have enough lead time, then it's a lot easier to get things done. So, I mean, if you're looking at, midsummer or something, that gives enough time to try to work with them to coordinate something.
Most definitely.
Yeah, and I think our idea here, this is a kind of at some point in the year goal. So, I don't think there isn't an urgency behind it. So I think we can, get some good lead time on it and make sure it includes everything we want and have it be a really polished, good product that we can use for the next few years.
Thank you, Doug. Stephanie put the minutes for last month up. So before we take on item 10, I'd like to go back to that item 3, the approval of the minute.
I have to share my screen, I think.
Oh, you've been sharing your
You've
screen.
been sharing it, I think.
Oh, it's because mine's the host?
Yes.
Okay. So everybody's read the first half of the one page?
Yes.
Okay.
No, sorry, we actually couldn't see it on Zoom, so we're just now getting it.
Oh, you
Okay.
are, okay.
So maybe we'll give you guys a few minutes to just,
And let me know when to scroll down.
yes. She's giving you a thumbs up to scroll down, I assume.
Oop, hold up, sorry. And while they're looking at that, the reciprocal relationships, if you could get me the information about the program on the 20th, because that's really not a long ways off.
Okay.
So the sooner that I can get that information, the sooner we can try to get the news releases out and promote it, because you want to give people enough time to get it on their calendar so they know about it. Because really, that's like 3 weeks.
Yeah, you're right. Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved by
Second.
Doug,
Second.
second by Mohammed. Any discussion? No? Well, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
same sign. No opposition, so minutes is approved. Then we're gonna go to item 10, the Youth Awards coming up. It's exciting time.
Yes.
Stephanie, take it.
So that's coming up on May 10th.
May 10th.
Wednesday.
And if there's any commissioners who know they will not be there, it would be great to know, because we have to give a RSVP, so
What time on the
there's a
10th?
cost for plates.
6 p.m.
6 PM.
It's about what, 6 to 8? 6 to,
I would hope, well, the dinner will be served at 6:30. Program starts at 7, and I would hope it would be over with about 7:35.
yeah. And we usually stay up, take pictures, so 6 to 8. It's a great
One of the
event.
best
One of the
events
best
I've-
events.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll be there.
So Bijou, Roger, Sylvia,
Yes.
Shannon?
I will be there, yeah.
Can I get back to you in
Sure.
a little bit? Just I gotta check my work schedule, but I think most likely I should be able to make it.
Okay. And Doug?
Yeah, I will be there. Where is it located?
The Hilton Garden Inn, which is also known as it's the hotel with the view.
But this is gonna be in the second,
But it's not in the view.
it's not in
We're
view,
the-
it's in the conference center.
Yeah,
Okay. Yes, I'll be there.
I'll be there as well.
okay.
I'll be there.
Awesome.
So just a reminder to wear your badges. If you've misplaced your badges, let me know. There's 3 roles at the ceremony for commissioners. There's the opening, the giving of the awards, and then the closing. The mayor also will speak for probably 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Usually the chair does the opening, vice chair does the award ceremony, and then somebody else on the commission does the closing. So before we proceed with finalizing anything, just making sure everybody's okay with that. If there's any concerns with following that format.
No, I'm fine with it. I'll do the opening and you read the award, I end them the award.
Yep. Is there someone here that wants to do the closing for the award ceremony? Bijou?
But if somebody else doesn't, I don't have to. I've done it before, so if you want to,
I did the closing last year.
I did
So-
like 3-something years ago.
I think you should do it, Bijou. I'm in for it.
Why not you?
And technically,
I'd like to
You'll
see you
come
and then
next year.
eventually learn.
You're gonna be here
Yeah,
next
yeah.
She wants you to do it,
Yeah.
then she'll do it the next
It is.
one.
No, I have a group for my kids actually. I've been nominated, so I'll be clapping. So you can do it. Please do it.
No, I'm thinking I can look at you do it. This is your last year on the commission, and I
Okay.
learn.
All right, Bijou,
from
She's
you.
just doing the closing.
Okay.
and there's an opportunity for folks are all called to the front
Yes.
at the program, so it's not like your presence and service to the commission goes unrecognized, because you are asked to come forward
Yes.
after your name is read, and so the people who are attending, and when it's being recorded, people will know that you're a commissioner too, and that, you're providing a service to the community as well.
And at the end, we have the entire commission take picture with all the youth that have been receiving the award as well, so. Do you know how many
Yeah, it
nomination
shot
we
up
have?
to 54 this year.
Wow.
Last year it was 26.
Wow.
Good luck.
Before COVID, we were getting 120,
Yeah,
130.
we did
Yes.
a lot like this before.
So,
54. I'll bring you a bottle of water.
Thank you. Please send me the names prior so I can look over them.
Actually, I think I inverted my numbers. I think it's 44.
Okay.
44,
Yeah,
see?
I'm close, but I think
Already
I
10 off.
inverted my numbers.
Ah.
Okay. Well, I'm excited about it, so. Anything else on that note? But the nomination is closed, right? It's already closed.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, the letters have been out, and we're just, I have to get the RSVP to them by I think, Monday or Tuesday, so it's pretty tight turnaround.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, let us know what we can do to help, so. Item number 11, staff announcement. Back to you, Stephanie.
I would just like to, I guess, just remind the committees, as you're kind of moving forward into the strategic plan and working together and trying to plan things. And I talked to Shannon about this in an email, but as you're doing in planning, if you could be mindful of creating budgets if there's going to be a cost to whatever you're doing, so that if funding needs to be had for a given event or program, that, you know, staff has an opportunity to look at that to see what assistance we can provide. I know for the event on the 20th, I think there's a request for like refreshments of some sort. So trying to get estimates so that, you know, I have a better idea of what that looks like. Because I can say yes, and then I get a $850 invoice, and that's, you know, so it's just being mindful of just kind of what the price is. It's not that I want to say no, it's just that until I see what that figure is.
Yes.
I just can't, you know, say yes. But just trying to be mindful of that, and also, you know, if there's questions or things that folks have about how this works, I'm more than happy to provide that information. But yeah, if there's any financial costs, it's best to get a proposal and a budget prepared, and then we can kind of work together from there. Because the goal is to assist, you know, as much as we can. But without any specific figures, it just kind of makes it difficult.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any other announcement? Staff announcement?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Commissioner announcement. Commissioners shall not engage in conversation or discussion to one another. So, we'll start with you, Bijou.
I can go. I'm excited.
She's excited.
I'm only excited because I don't really have a huge announcement. I went to Des Moines on Friday to take my test, and we got to visit the Supreme Court room and got to sit on their chairs. I know I cannot share some of those pictures because they say I couldn't, but I got to talk to them. And I went with my kids, and they allow all of us to come in. Then we went to the state capitol, and we did the visit with my children. And I also went and we went inside of the chambers, you know, the Senate chamber, and I don't know, there was 3 of them. And I got to meet again the former mayor, what is his name? Ross, yes. He is amazing. And we had conversation, and he made me sit on the chair and took our pictures. So it's amazing.
I don't have much announcement, but on behalf of HRC, there was a ceremony by the Kenyan community of Iowa City here. They actually had a birthday celebration where they honoring one of their matriarchs, one of their community leader that does just so much for their community. And they had a plaque that they wanted it to be presented by the mayor. While the mayor was going to be out of town, the mayor actually recorded a video with that plaque to be played at that ceremony. So, and then they reached out to me as a chair of HRC if I could present the plaque in person at that ceremony. So it was nice. It was a nice event, and this community leader does just so much with the community, bringing in new members when they're coming in and showing them the way. So it was nice of Mayor Teague to do the video that was played at the event, and I got the opportunity to present that plaque to her. So it was really nice. That's the only thing I have to share.
Sorry, can I go back one more thing?
Yes.
Sorry, I forgot. I have an announcement, and I'm inviting you guys. It's this coming Saturday, if you have time, at 6 p.m., and it's a African Community Network. They're coming together to bring idea about why a lot of youth are in jail, and they want a lot of mothers to come to speak about it, and I think they'll have some city council members out there to answer or talk to them, or the police. If you guys can join as human rights commissioners, it would be nice so they can have that support and also ask questions or something. And it's at the rec center in North Liberty. Sorry.
Thank you.
I have nothing to add at this meeting. Thanks.
Just one announcement from me. So the affinity graduation for international students is going to take place on May 11th. It's a Thursday. From, I think, 3 to 5:30 p.m. at the Graduate Hotel. So if you need more information, just let me know. Yeah, I'm not inviting anyone, but just like let me know if you are interested in. You are definitely welcome to join. Just celebrate, with our international students.
Can you, I know we're not supposed to engage in communication, but can you guys just send that information to Stephanie so she can send it out to the commission, you too? Thank you.
I don't have any updates, no.
All right, we're gonna go to our partners in Zoom. Doug?
Just one update along the lines of Affinity graduations. May 9th is Rainbow graduation at the university. That ceremony for LGBTQIA plus graduating students from university is May 9th in the old Capitol Senate chamber. And that's all from me.
Just one more comment. We were actually scheduled to hold the event at that venue as well, but we received just overwhelming response. So now we have to move to the Graduate Hotel. I think it's just great. So it means so many family members and parents, friends of international students are gonna be here. I think it's very important for Iowa City. I think have this kind of international visitors.
Awesome. Kelsey?
I wish I was there with you all. It's good to see you virtually, but no announcements. But keep me posted because I know our next meeting falls just before Memorial Day weekend, and I know there's a lot of activities. So if you see things come through that should be shared, I'd love to hear about them, and I would encourage that. But nothing from me right now.
Thank you. John V?
Yeah, nothing much. I just, we collaborated comfortably with the Catherine McCauley Center, which is in Cedar Rapids for refugee populations. And I think that was amazing because we were there for several hours doing a lot of assessments just to talk about mental health and culturally sensitive ways of talking about stigma and approaching mental health. So I think that was something unique and new, and thought that we could draw a lot of that into the work that we do in our community here is basically do a presentation of what is mental health, what is therapy, before just asking them and telling them that, hey, you can go for therapy. So yeah, that's all the update and something related that I did this month.
Thank you. Well, if there are no other announcements, I do appreciate all of you guys. Keep on doing what you do to change the world out there. My favorite quote is always, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in service of others. So keep up what you're doing. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned.